Imagine sitting down to eat the most common meal in medieval Europe. A thick slice of dark bread. You tear it apart with your hands. The crust is hard. The inside is dense and slightly damp. Maybe you dip it into a bowl of thin soup or stew. It fills your stomach. It keeps you alive. But hours later, something feels wrong. Your head begins to spin. Your muscles twitch. Your skin burns with a strange heat. In severe cases, people started seeing visions, terrifying hallucinations that made them scream or run through the streets. And the worst part? The cause of this nightmare might have been the very food meant to keep you alive. Because in medieval Europe, eating was never as simple as it sounds. Food could nourish you, but sometimes it could slowly poison you. Food preservation in the Middle Ages was difficult. There were no refrigerators, no sealed containers, no reliable ways to keep grain completely dry. Bread, the foundation of most medieval diets, was made from stored grain that could sit for months before being used. If that grain became damp, something dangerous began to grow. Mold. To modernize, moldy food is easy to recognize and discard. But medieval people often had little choice. When harvests were limited, wasting grain could mean going hungry, so slightly spoiled food was sometimes used anyway. The result was bread that looked normal, but carried harmful fungi inside it. Most of the time, this caused stomach problems or illness. But occasionally, something far worse appeared. Hidden inside certain grains, especially rye, was a fungus known today as ergot. When it infected crops, it replaced healthy grains with dark, toxic growths. If those grains were ground into flour and baked into bread, the poison entered the food supply. The disease caused by ergot poisoning was called ergotism, sometimes known as St. Anthony's fire. The symptoms were horrifying. Victims experienced burning pain in their limbs, violent muscle spasms, and terrifying hallucinations. In severe cases, blood circulation stopped completely in fingers or toes. The flesh turned black and died. People sometimes lost entire limbs. To medieval observers, the illness looked supernatural. Some believed it was divine punishment. Others feared it was caused by witchcraft. Few realized the truth, that the poison came from contaminated grain baked into their daily bread. Even when grain wasn't infected by ergot, storage itself created problems. Medieval granaries were often simple wooden buildings or stone rooms designed to hold large amounts of harvested grain. But these structures had weaknesses. Moisture could seep in during storms. Rats and mice found their way inside easily. Once pests arrived, they contaminated food with droppings and urine. Insects also flourished in stored grain. Tiny beetles and worms multiplied quickly in warm conditions. Sometimes flour already contained insect larvae before it reached the kitchen. But again, medieval families rarely had the luxury of throwing food away. If grain looked mostly usable, it was ground and baked. The result was bread that might contain more than just flour and water. Another hidden danger of medieval food was nutritional imbalance. For the majority of people, peasants and laborers, meat was rare. Their diet relied heavily on bread, porridge, and simple vegetable soups. These foods provided calories, but often lacked essential nutrients. Vitamins and proteins were limited, especially during winter months when fresh produce was scarce. This kind of diet led to chronic health problems. People became weaker, more vulnerable to disease, and slower to recover from illness. Children growing up on these diets sometimes suffered from stunted growth. To medieval families, this was normal. But in reality, their food lacked the variety needed for long-term health. Even worse than poor nutrition was the threat of famine. Medieval agriculture depended entirely on weather. A single year of heavy rain, drought, or early frost could destroy crops across an entire region. One of the most devastating examples was the Great Famine of 1315 to 1317. For several years, relentless rain ruined harvests across northern Europe. Fields flooded, grain rotted before it could be collected, food prices soared, families sold possessions to buy bread. Some slaughtered farm animals they normally kept for milk or labor. Still, hunger spread. Historical accounts describe desperate people eating tree bark, roots, and even animals that had died from disease. The famine weakened millions of people, making them far more vulnerable when the Black Death arrived a few decades later. Despite all these risks, bread remained the center of medieval life. In many households, bread was eaten at nearly every meal. The type of bread someone ate even revealed their social status. Wealthy nobles enjoyed light-colored bread made from finely sifted wheat flour. Peasants ate darker, denser loaves made from rye, barley, or oats. These breads were heavier and often contained bits of husk or brawn. Sometimes loaves were so tough they had to be soaked in liquid before eating. Bread wasn't just food, it was a symbol of survival. If there was bread on the table, the family had something to eat. If there wasn't, hunger was close behind. Food in medieval Europe clearly reflected social hierarchy. Nobles and wealthy merchants enjoyed far more varied diets. Their tables featured roasted meats, fish, cheese, fruits, and imported spices like pepper or cinnamon. Feasts and castles could include elaborate dishes designed to impress guests. In contrast, peasants lived on simple staples: bread, porridge, occasional vegetables. Meat might appear only during special celebrations. Even then, portions were small. This difference had real health consequences. Wealthy people had access to better nutrition, although their rich diets sometimes caused problems of their own, like gout. For the poor majority, the challenge was simply getting enough to eat. Food in the Middle Ages also tasted very different from what we expect today. Without refrigeration, meat often had to be preserved with heavy salt or strong spices. Spices weren't only used for flavor, they sometimes masked the taste of food beginning to spoil. Cheese could be extremely pungent. Ale or weak beer was commonly consumed because water sources were not always safe. Meals were simple, repetitive, and heavily influenced by what the local harvest provided. Variety was rare, but people adapted. The human body is remarkably capable of surviving difficult conditions, and for centuries, medieval communities lived with these limitations as part of everyday life. Here's the strange paradox. Food was the foundation of life. It gave people the strength to work, build, and raise families. Yet at the same time, the food system of the medieval world carried constant risks. Contaminated grain, spoiled storage, nutritional imbalance, and the ever-present threat of famine. People didn't always die from a single meal, but over time, poor nutrition and hidden toxins weakened bodies slowly. For many medieval Europeans, the food that kept them alive also quietly shortened their lives. Yet even these struggles with food were only part of the harsh reality of medieval life. Because for those who dreamed of something greater, power, honor, glory, there was another path. A path filled with steel armor, war horses, and brutal combat. The life of a knight. But behind the shining legends of medieval chivalry lies a truth few people imagine today. Because in the next episode, we'll uncover why being a knight in medieval history was often pure nightmare fuel.